All right, strap yourselves in because today we're diving into some serious Boxing Day test drama. Australia, India, the tension is palpable, and then boom, Virat Kohli, India's captain, gets into it with the Aussie debutant Sam Konstas.
Yes.
And we're not talking a friendly exchange of words here.
No, not at all. This was more like
It was more like a disagreement, a shoulder-to-shoulder disagreement, you could say.
a shoulder-based disagreement. I like that.
We've got a mountain of articles about this incident. Fan reactions, expert opinions, you guys sent us everything.
A whole shebang.
So let's deep dive into what really happened and why everyone's still talking about it.
Well, the timing of this bump is interesting. It happened right after Konstas pulled off this, pretty gutsy move. A ramp shot against India's star bowler, Jasprit Bumrah.
Okay, wait. For those of us who, don't have a PhD in cricket, what's so special about this ramp shot? Why would it cause such a strong reaction?
So picture this. The bowler's charging in, the ball's coming at you like a rocket, and instead of, a classic defensive move, you scoop the ball up and over your shoulder towards fine leg.
Okay.
It's high risk, high reward, and some see it as, kind of disrespectful, especially against someone like Bumrah, who's known for his accuracy, his speed.
So basically, rookie Konstas is trying to psych out India's best bowler. No wonder Kohli reacted.
Right.
And speaking of reactions, have you seen what the Indian fans are saying? It's wild. Memes comparing Kohli to a raging bull, tweets calling him a national hero. It's like the whole internet exploded.
Yeah, and there were even some comparing him to other legendary cricketers known for their, let's say, passionate moments on the field.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, yeah, Kohli might be fiery, but that's our captain. But it's not all memes and cheers, is it?
No.
Some of the articles you sent us were questioning Kohli's sportsmanship, and that's where Bumrah's reputation comes in, right?
Exactly. Bumrah isn't just any bowler. He's considered India's, secret weapon.
Their leading man.
Yeah, a total game changer.
So maybe in Kohli's eyes, disrespecting Bumrah is like disrespecting the whole team. It's almost like a protective instinct.
It could be.
But then we get the Australian perspective. You sent an article with Michael Clarke, former Aussie captain, and he's actually defending Kohli, saying Kohli's not a bad guy, just, caught up in the heat of the moment.
Right, it's a good point. Because it brings up that human element in sport, Even the best athletes can lose their cool sometimes.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, cut the guy some slack, it's a high-pressure game. But then there's Ricky Ponting, another Aussie captain, and he's not as forgiving. He thinks Kohli got off easy with just a fine and a demerit point. What do you think about that?
Well, Ponting's criticism adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it? It makes you think about where the line is between passion and unsportsmanlike conduct. Does it change based on cultural background? Is there even a universal standard on the field?
Such a good point. And it makes me wonder, where do you, listening at home, draw that line? Definitely something to think about.
And, in all of this, right after the shoulder bump, Usman Khawaja, the Australian player, he stepped in to try and, calm things down.
Oh, wow. So even in that crazy moment with tensions that high, there were still players trying to keep things from getting out of control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It shows that even on a field as competitive as a Boxing Day test, there's still people prioritizing, sportsmanship, keeping things from going too far.
Yeah, it really shows you, the complexity of it all. But let's zoom out for a second. This all went down at the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. That's a pretty big deal, right?
Oh, yeah, huge. The MCG is, one of the most iconic cricket venues in the world.
Think Yankee Stadium for baseball or Wembley for football.
Exactly. Full of history, really special to cricket fans everywhere, really.
So it's not just any cricket ground, it's the cricket ground. And for Kohli specifically, this is a place where, he's had some incredible moments. You sent us a piece about a century he scored there back in, I think it was 2014. That's a pretty big deal in the cricket world, right?
Massive. A century, scoring 100 runs in a single innings. It's like hitting a home run in baseball, only way harder to do. It shows, the batsman's skill, stamina, mental toughness. And for Kohli to do that at the MCG on that stage, it cemented him as a cricketing legend.
So this isn't just a battleground for Kohli, it's a place where he's usually celebrated, which makes this whole thing even more, just more complicated.
Totally. It adds a whole other dimension to the story. Here's a guy who's known for, thriving under pressure. He feeds off the energy of the crowd. And suddenly he's at odds with that very crowd. It makes you think, what does that do to a player mentally.
Yeah, it's got to mess with your head, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you've had such a good relationship with them in the past. Speaking of perspectives, we've been talking a lot about how the Indian fans and media are reacting, but what about Australia? How did they cover it?
It was pretty divided, actually,
Yeah.
mirroring the fan reactions, I guess.
Hmm.
Some commentators were really harsh, calling Kohli a bully and all that, saying he should have gotten a harsher penalty. But then you have folks like Michael Clarke, who we talked about earlier, defending Kohli,
Yeah.
talking about, how intense the game is and sticking up for Kohli's character.
So it's like a whole mix of opinions then. Like everyone had their own interpretation of what happened.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a hot topic for sure. And it wasn't just limited to Australia either. Indian media had a lot to say, too. They were, I guess, more protective of Kohli, focusing more on his passion for the game and kind of downplaying the bump as just a minor disagreement.
Almost like there were two completely different stories being told, depending on which side of the world you were on.
Exactly. It shows how, cultural context can really affect how people see and report on an event.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there's more than one side to every story. But all this talk about media coverage and different perspectives, it kind of brings us to a bigger question. What does all this say about Kohli himself? He's always been this, intense, almost larger-than-life figure in cricket. Did this whole shoulder bump thing, did it tarnish his image?
That's a tough one. I mean, he's always walked this fine line between passion and mist.
Well, sometimes it comes across as aggression. What do you think?
I don't know, it's tricky. Some people admire that fire in him, that total commitment to winning, but others see it as, disrespectful, especially from a captain. This incident definitely added fuel to that fire, though. Makes you wonder, was this just Kohli being Kohli, or did we see a different side of him? It's complex, for sure. You send over some articles about Kohli's past, controversies, and he's definitely had a few run-ins on the field before. It seems like this incident just, tapped into something that's been building for a while.
Like it wasn't a one-off, it was like a culmination of things.
Yeah, the pressure of the match, the rivalry between the teams, the whole thing with Bumrah, it all just built up to this boiling point.
Like a perfect storm.
Exactly. And the fact that it happened to the MCG, where, Kohli is usually so successful, it adds another layer of, I don't know, intrigue. What do you think it means for his future there at that specific ground?
That's a good question. It's almost Shakespearean, isn't it? The hero, Kohli, facing his demons, with the crowds cheering and jeering all around him. Will he overcome it, or will it, break him?
It's a pretty compelling story. It really shows how sport can capture people's imaginations and make them feel so much. But before we get too carried away with all that, we should remember that there was another player involved in this. Sam Konstas. This was his debut match. Can you imagine the pressure?
Yeah.
And then to have this run-in with Virat Kohli, of all people, how do you think he dealt with it all?
Well, in one of the articles you sent, it said that Konstas seemed, I don't know, like he wasn't fazed by it at all. He even went on to score a half-century in that same match on his debut.
Yeah, which is incredible. It's 50 runs in a single innings. That's a big deal for any player, let alone someone making their debut in such a high-pressure situation. It shows you how mentally strong he is. To not let that whole incident get to him, to stay focused. Impressive.
Talk about keeping your cool.
For real.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, was that calmness a deliberate strategy, a sign of, mental toughness? Or was it maybe a different cultural approach to, confrontation on the field? We know Australians have that reputation for being, more laid back. Could that have something to do with it?
That's an interesting thought. Makes you think about how much of our reactions to stuff like this are based on our own cultural backgrounds and the ideas we already have.
Totally.
Yeah.
But whatever the cultural reasons are, one thing's for sure, this whole thing has definitely started a much bigger conversation about, sportsmanship, respect, and what's okay and not okay on the field.
It's about more than just the shoulder bump itself. It's about what it represents, the questions it makes us ask about how we act when we're competing. So where do things stand now? Has everyone calmed down about this whole controversy?
Not really. People are still talking about it, still analyzing it, fans and experts alike. I think it's going to be a topic of conversation for a while.
Why do you think that is? Why has this specific incident gotten so much attention?
I think it's because it speaks to something deeper than just a physical altercation. It's about our own struggles with competition, ambition, that desire to win. We see ourselves in these athletes, in their good moments and their bad moments.
It reminds us that they're human, just like us. They have the same emotions, the same pressures. They get tempted to cross the line, just like we do.
Exactly. And in a sport like cricket, with all its history and rivalries, These moments stick with people. They shape how we see the players, the teams, for years to come.
So it's not just a blip in a Boxing Day test. It's a story that'll keep being told and retold.
Absolutely. And it's a story that we've only just started to unpack, really. There are so many layers to it, so many questions to ask.
Feels like we've peeled back this incident and found a whole universe underneath.
Yeah.
And just like any good story, I'm left with more questions than answers.
That's the point of a good deep dive, though, isn't it? Exploring the questions, the complexities, the stuff that makes us think differently about, well, everything, really.
I agree. And for everyone listening at home, I think this deep dive has left us with a pretty big one.
Let's go back to the MCG for a second. That iconic ground where Kohli has had so much success and now, well, this controversy. How do you think this is going to affect his relationship with the Australian crowd going forward?
Yeah, like it's his home away from home in a way, but now there's this tension there.
Wow.
Can he get that magic back, that connection with the fans? Or has this shoulder bump, change things forever?
It's a real test, isn't it? Can he move past it, win him back over, or will it always be there, hanging over him at the MCG? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It's like a cliffhanger ending, right? We're all waiting to see what happens next for Kohli at the MCG, but that's what's so great about sport. You never know what's going to happen. It's emotional. It keeps us on the edge of our seats.
And that's why we love it, right?
Yeah.
These moments, these stories, they become more than just the game. They start conversations. They make us think about being human.
It reminds us that athletes are people too. They go through the same stuff we do.
Exactly. And in a sport like cricket, with so much tradition, so much rivalry, these things, these incidents, they really stay with people. They shape how we see the players and the teams, maybe forever.
So this wasn't just a moment in a Boxing Day test. It's a story that's going to keep being told, I think.
Definitely. And it's a story that we've only just scratched the surface of. There's still so much to unpack, so many questions to explore.
And on that note, a huge thank you to you for lending your expertise to this deep dive.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Always love a good cricket chat.
And to everyone listening, keep those sources coming. We've got a whole world of topics to uncover, from, the mysteries of the ocean to the latest in AI technology. Anything that sparks your curiosity, we're here to dive in with you.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's all about learning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exploring and, expanding our understanding of the world, one deep dive at a time.
So until next time, keep those questions coming. Keep your minds curious. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
See you then.